Any driver or company should have at least 5 full years of vehicle ownership from date of purchase to pay off their financial investment and get some meaningful returns to reinvest in a replacement vehicle. If the amendment does not extend the vehicle age period, a great number of drivers may not be able to afford vehicle ownership in the shortened period and may have to resort to leasing or renting a vehicle as their only option. Secondly, leasing and rental companies will have to significantly increase their rental fees because of the increased vehicle acquisition and maintenance expenses from purchasing more late-model vehicles. The DC taxicab market could not sustain such steep price increases with the current rate structure and driver earning capacity in the current operating environment. Change is inevitable, but it must be fair, reasonable, and transparent to all affected parties. We just discovered that the proposed revisions to Section 5 and 9 of Title 31 were finalized on September 21st, 11 meeting. There are some serious concerns that the approved changes to Section 9 insurance and the enforcement of these flawed revisions have already begun. Vehicles are being impounded if the driver does not produce a proof of insurance card, even though the vehicle has valid insurance coverage. I want to add one note to all of this. Mr. Crone, I know you represent a significant group in the hospitality industry. I find it very offensive that the hospitality industry attends these meetings, as I've stated before, drop their bombs, cast aside the industry that they greatly depend on. We transport more residents than we transport visitors. There's a misconception here.
Mr. Spooner, you're engaging in an argument rather
No, I want to state a point, because when they stand here and say that they oppose some of the things that you're trying to do, that you're honestly trying to do, without involving a conversation.
I'm going to cut you off your argument and not presenting the information on what you want.
What I did was, over a 21-day period, I recorded every fare in terms of the extras and the mileage. Then I recomputed this to determine what the net impact would be upon driver revenues under the proposed commission increase. In those 21 days, there was not a single day in which I would not have incurred an increase in gross revenues. First of all, when the temporary gas surcharge is kept in the gross revenue base, the drivers would incur a net increase of 8.5% increase in gross revenues. When the temporary gas surcharge is netted out from the revenue base, drivers would incur a net increase of 20% in their gross revenues. So I think the point that needs to be emphasized is this new rate design is a win for the drivers, and it is a win.
Order.
You want for Sheffer.
Order.
Yes, he's for Sheffer.
The order.
I have some copies of the results if you would like.
We would like them. Thank you very much.
I have given some. You have some.
Order. This hearing is not restricted to drivers.
I am a driver.
No, you're hearing.
I am a licensed driver for 30 years in the District of Columbia.
I want order. It's irrelevant whether she's a driver or not. This is a public hearing, and any citizen in the District of Columbia will be given a chance to speak.
I'm here today on behalf of DC Taxi Watch. Our mission is to empower consumers to improve DC's taxicab industry. We are the only grassroots voice for DC taxicab customers. Attached to my formal comments, which I've emailed to the Commission, please find an electronic petition that has over 925 signatures from residents of the District of Columbia endorsing our proposal that we made at the November 29th hearing here. Regarding surcharge eliminations, we fully support the elimination of unnecessary, confusing, and often arbitrary surcharges proposed in the rulemaking. In particular, we note that the surcharges for additional passengers, luggage, trunks, personal service, and pets have encouraged discrimination by taxicab operators in favor of fares that would incur surcharges. Regarding single fares with multiple drop-offs, DC Taxi Watch concurs with the proposal in the Maxwell petition that when multiple individuals enter a cab but are bound for different destinations, quote, the person or party who exits the cab at the final destination shall be responsible for the payment of the entire fare without the resetting of the meter at each intermediate drop-off. Regarding gratuity, we fully support the implementation of measures that will ensure the district's taxicab fleet is modernized and provide a safer and more comfortable system that reduces environmental damage throughout the region. The Commission has not proposed a date certain for implementing the fleet modernization rules. We support an immediate implementation of this rule and propose a July 1st, 2012 date for compliance with this new rule. The sooner this rule is implemented, the sooner the riding public will benefit from automobile industry advances in vehicle safety and emission reductions technologies.
On Tuesday, November 29, 2011, the District of Columbia Taxicab Commission, DCTC, made a major economic policy decision in a public meeting conducted for less than 10 minutes. In this meeting, perhaps the shortest ever, it unanimously voted on a so-called fare increase and attached a vintage requirement string to it by the name of industry improvement. The issue of fare increase was our demand for the past several years. Excited and assuming that it was an honest discussion, the vast majority of us suggested to the Commission to adopt a temporary rate commensurate with the average of the surrounding until a conclusive study is done. However, the DCTC came up with its own fare structure, whose analysis is mainly based on information derived from Mr. Maxwell's study. Regardless of the arithmetic errors, the incomparable variables and the wrong assumptions DCTC analysis exhibits, the simple fact that it borrowed many descriptive statistics from Mr. Maxwell's study by itself fails it to be presentable. Even though applied statistics is not our subject, no one in the history of this science has ever attempted to predict the characteristics of a population of 8,000 from one single sample. Making a major economic policy that affects millions of riders and tens of thousands of service providers based upon one person's one-week study is simply an insult to the wisdom of the average American. Given the nature of the business and the unique characteristics of our political city, you should not reach at such a rash judgment without having a comprehensive and conclusive study at hand. And hence, I respectfully request to adopt the area average, which is familiar with the majority of the riding public, until such a study is conducted. Long before we have a new chairperson, 5 chapters of Title 31 were rewritten to go hand in hand with the famous Harry Thomas medallion bill. And this proposed rulemaking is a portion directly taken or carbon copied from the amendment made there. If you all remember, a public hearing was scheduled on this matter on June 22, 2011, where an overwhelming majority of the participants boycotted the hearing because of the infamous arrest of journalist Pete Tucker. Looking back to the same drama, we all should be reminded of the effort made by representatives from the Environ Car Company to calm down the audience so that the hearing could go through. What's her concern? God knows. I would also like to remind you of the opposition made against a fare increase during a 2010 hearing by a former employee of the same Environ company. Let you start collect the dots. One more time, remember the recent Mayor Vincent Gray's decision on October 19, 2011 to lift the moratorium on new companies, whereas The per capita ratio of taxi cabs in the district is the highest than any other city in the world. Imagine what any addition in an already super-saturated market would cause.
1 minute, sir.
Thank you. Beginning the transition from the zone to the meter system, so many harmful actions have been taken by the DCTC, including an economic genocide to force us to wither away by ourselves, but we remain immune, though tender and weak. However, this proposed vintage rule is the most lethal injection ever prescribed to wipe us out of the streets. Can anyone of you among the drivers tell us that you can drive 13 miles per hour on non-stop for 5 continuous years to satisfy the condition in one of the articles? Or can you tell me if you can drive 164 miles a day, every day, for 5 continuous years in Washington, D.C.? I'm sure not. This is designed to help the would-be monopoly stakeholders to enable them to lease their vehicles 2 or 3 shifts a day. Would the environment, would removing 10,000 vehicles from a city streets that entertain 1 million a day affect any change in the environment? I doubt. But it has any environmental effect. It means that it worth more than the life of 8,000 cab drivers and families. Even though I understand that we have to begin somewhere to improve our environment, this approach is simply a political billboard. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize that we have never been against any change. But what we always ask is to involve and evolve with it. Sadly, we are neglected. We and our own families are not considered as part of society. Always branded as dumps and zero corporate value assigned on top of our head, we are driven out of any discussion that affects our own life. It is clear and simple. Your current activities are another attempt designed to circumvent the vintage rule under the cover of fair play. Hence, I respectfully request this administration and this commission to stop paving the final route.
Time is up, sir. Time is up.
One sentence. Stop paving the final route that would take us to modern sharecropping and fairly engage all the drivers to improve the industry and service public. Thank you.
Charlie.
I have, I think, more than 12 to 1,500 drivers signed in favor of a salvage vehicle and the age of the car. Age of the car about 8 to 10 years for all these categories. So I have only a couple of things. One more thing that I wanted to say. Nobody had talked about extras in 80 years of history of taxi cab commission, taxi cabs in DC. So where we are talking now, that taking extras off or luggage fares off. So if we just keep those extras as is and only talk about the mile rates, which is, I think, $2.60 is very fair. So, anything else?
Good morning, Commissioner Linton, commissioners, and my fellow cab drivers. My name is Negera Bebe from Small Business Association. I am representing 3,000 cab drivers. The Small Business Association of District of Columbia Tax Cab Driver has critically analyzed the DCTC proposed rates. On the basis of the figures and data used by the DCTC, the proposed rate is not an increase. The proposed rate is rather a decrease in earning compared to what the driver were earning 4 years ago. It may seem true that the driver will get reasonable compensation when the trip is more than 4 miles. This again, however, fell short to sufficiently cover the loss from the ones under 3 miles trip. On top of this, in most of the above 4 mile trips, the opportunity of finding a return fare is almost zero. Therefore, given the business and commercial center of the city, which is not more than 2.5 miles radius square, more than 75% of the trips originate and terminate, the proposed rate categorically deprive the drivers a positive and a reasonable return for their service. However, Maxwell's analysis and conclusion by no measure can be sufficient to extract or infer any additional conclusion. Mr. Maxwell himself has indicated on the record that he has been manipulated by the DCTC on his proposal. SCB on the November 11, 2011 testimony opposed Maxwell's proposal because the sample size is unquestionably insufficient to arrive at reasonable and rational conclusion. Hence, SCB recommend a parity among the neighboring jurisdiction until a comprehensive study is conducted.